the first live session of this course titled as Psychology of Personality and Individual Differences, Theory and Applications. So, so this is a course which is aimed at understanding the different theories, models, conceptualizations around the concept of human personality. And we also will address in this course what are the possible applications of these ideas. So personality is one of the core concept of psychology, because you cannot understand the various aspects of human psychology without understanding personality. So it's one of the core aspects of uh, the discipline of psychology. So this course is basically aimed at understanding this only. So this is for live session. The idea is that if you have any questions, doubts related to any content about assignment, whatever it is, you can just share your ideas, thoughts, or any questions that you have. So I'm here till you ask question to the maximum of 1 hour. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can ask. I think someone asked in the Google form. There was one question only. Somebody is Arundhati, I think she's a faculty, and she asked a question: how can we differentiate good and bad person in the society depending upon his nature? I'm not very sure about the question, that whether I have understood the question properly. But I think the question is, how can we differentiate between good and bad person? So one thing we should understand, when we're talking about personality, we are not talking about good and bad in terms of moral judgment. Psychology, when we talk about personality, we are not judging people based on morality, based on good and characteristics. We are only interested into, like, the different patterns and characteristics of people in their behavior. What are the stable traits by which we can differentiate people? What are the dynamics and the mechanisms behind those differences? There is another term that used to be used before the personality became popular, that is called character. So that has moral connotation. That whenever we hear the term character, then automatically it comes to our mind good character, bad character in a moral sense. But personality word doesn't have those kind of connotation. That is why this whole people used to use this type of word like character and so on. It was replaced, and now people use personality, which is more of a neutral word. So we are not really in the debate of good and bad person as such in the we'll talk about personality, but obviously when we talk about who is a good and who is a bad person, it is a very societal construct. Every society will have their own definition, own characteristics. Every culture will have their own characteristics, and there will be some characteristics which are universally like applicable. If somebody harms other people, we know this is not a good characteristics, and so on. So those could be reflection of some other underlying traits and so on. But personality as such is not directly interested into dividing people into good characteristics and bad characteristics. Certain traits may have certain manifestation in certain ways which we can label them as good or bad. So that's something. So what is good and bad? It's a very societal construct, collective construct. Some of it is culturally constructed, some of it could be universal. So any question on any other concepts that you have, if you would like to ask? I think quite a few people are joined now. So if you can ask for any clarification and so on. So I hope you have understood the definition of personality when we use this term personality. Especially there may be many students who are not from the discipline of psychology. So when we talk about personality in psychology, it's a very specific thing that we mean. That it is these are like stable or relatively permanent characteristics in terms of thoughts, emotions, and behavior. We try to understand why one person is different from another person. What makes one person unique as compared to another person? What are those psychological characteristics? So that is one of the major defining aspects of personality. Mm, we are not really interested in physical characteristics or differences, although in the layman terms, when people use physical traits and characteristics as concept in their conceptualization of personality. For example, if somebody looks very attractive and so on, people will say this person has a great personality. So that is not what in psychology we are in, like physical characteristics and so on. That is not part of personality definition. In psychology, we're more interested in psychological characteristics which are relatively permanent and which distinguishes one person from another person. So if certain characteristics just keep changing, for example, today you show very extrovert nature and tomorrow you become introvert, then we cannot say this is a very stable, relatively permanent characteristics. This could be simply because of certain situation you behave in a certain way. So in personality, we are more interested into relatively stable characteristics. If your characteristics changes on a daily basis or a weekly basis, we cannot say this is part of your personality, because it may be simply because of certain situational factor. So when we say somebody has introvert or extrovert, that means most of the time this person is introvert. Obviously, we cannot say 100% time person will be introvert, but most of the time you can guess this person is not very interested or not very outgoing, not very like social and so on. So in a sense, relatively permanent, most of the time this person shows these characteristics, then we can say this is possibly the part of that person's characteristics or personality trait. So some theories are more interested into these differences of individual differences, like they try to characterize human beings based on those characteristics, how one person is different from another person. So typically theories like trait theories, they're only interested into differentiating people based on characteristics. How can we differentiate human beings based on certain uh, traits? Some theories which are more often explanatory models like psychoanalysis. Uh, uh, you know, so for example, psychoanalysis looks deeper in human mind, why people behave the way they are. So that tries to go and try to explain behavior rather than just saying how people are different. So different theories have different you know uh, framework in order to explain human behavior. Uh, so when we talk about human personalities, we don't consider physical characteristics or differences in the body and face and so on. We are also not interested into temporary uh, characteristics of, let's say, based on emotions and moods, which are very temporary and thing. So these are like will not be considered as a type of personal characteristics. If there is something consistently, obviously some certain emotions part of can influence your psychological characteristics, then that can be influenced. Certain psychological characteristics like intelligence, these are not considered under personality, because intelligence is a different domain. Obviously, it can be connected to some of the aspects, but intelligence, your mental abilities, these are not part of personality. So So intelligence will be, you will see any psychology textbook, intelligence will be a separate chapter from personality. Personality is mostly of a stable, broad characteristics by which we can characterize the person. So if I say somebody is introvert, so this is the characteristics of that person. Certain psychological characteristics are very narrow aspects. For example, certain attitudes towards, let's say, some political party, or attitudes towards something. So these are very narrow domains. So we also don't consider those attitude related things in the context of personality. So personality is more broader, which defines the person rather than more specific context specific differences. So so based on that, there are different models and theories that tries to understand personality from their perspectives. You may find certain theories are very different from other theories, and yet they can explain a lot of things. So that shows how human personality could be so different and so unique, and it is very difficult to explain everything of human beings based on one theory. The number of theories you see, what we have discussed in this course, are like there are much more than that also. But these are some of the broad major theories. And there are so many theories that shows that it is so difficult to explain human behavior. There is so much of complexities around human behavior that multiple theories are also still not able to capture it. So that's the idea in human beings are not easy to understand. Psychology is trying to understand, but it is far from complete understanding. These are some of the partial attempts, all these theories. They are not perfect theories. They have their limitations. Every theories have their own limitations. They try to only capture one aspect of human behavior. So many other things are left out. So this is an ongoing journey. People are gathering more and more insights based on research and so on. Do you have any questions?
Sir, can you please explain
yes.
heritability?
Heritability basically is a concept that generally discussed in behavior genetics. It basically means that at the population level, certain traits or characteristics. So heritability is not just psychological concepts, it could include physical characteristics also, like height, weight, and so on. At the population level, to what extent we can use or to what extent genetics can explain these differences. So this is a population level concept. It's not an individual concept. So if I say heritability of height, human height in a group of people or in a tribe, let's say, I say their height is 90% determined by the genes. That means in this group of people, not individual people, that 90% of differences in the heights can be explained by the genetics. So when we say heritability is 90%. So basically, this is an indicator which shows to what extent genetics contribute to a trait at the population level. Understand? So in a population, when I say that height is determined by 90% is determined by the genes, that means 90% of it is actually mostly explained by the genes only. Only 10% could be environmental factors. But we cannot say person X height is determined 90%. No. So this may not be applicable at individual level. So at the broader population level, this is an indicator which shows for any trait. Uh, whether this is explained, to what extent it is explained by the genetics. So it's an indication of contribution of genes in a certain trait. It could be psychological trait, it could be physical trait, and so on. So genetics in the biology, the discipline of biology, where genetics is studied, they use this parameter to explain how genetics contribute to different traits, physical traits, psychological traits, and so on. So this is an indicator of contribution of genes in a certain trait at the population level.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So this do the assignments properly, and in the final exam also, questions will be very like patterns will be very similar to assignment only. So basically, so this all these questions in the final exam also will be multiple choice questions only. 100 marks will be total marks will be 100, and all these questions will be multiple choice only. So there will not be any subjective questions in the final exam also. And the questions will come from all the modules. So don't skip any modules. Use the lecture notes. And if you don't understand some concept, go to the video lectures. And if you don't understand even from the video lectures, you can join such live sessions also, and you can also ask questions the Q&A sections of the course page. So in the course page, you can find Q&A section. There is where you can ask a question. I think it is typically through a Gmail and only. So it comes to us, and we'll address those issues. And so there will be 2 more live sessions also. You can join such live sessions and directly ask also. So this is how it will be like, like from the exam point of view, you try to address all these assignment questions. Questions will be a mix of some questions may be very similar to assignment. Some questions may be a little bit of thinking based. Some question will be very direct, concept based and so on. So if you go through the notes properly, I think this should not be a problem. So you'll be able to score good. Any more questions, doubts? So are you understanding, like, all these theories? So when you go through this explanation of different theories, you may think like, why all these theories are so different from each other. So I said, don't worry, because these all theories are from different perspectives. To understand human being is very complex. So that is why you will see all these theories are very different from each other. Concepts are much, some theories may look like opposite to one another. It only shows the complexity of human personality. And human personality is at the center of human psychology. If you don't understand personality, you cannot, because personality is only trying to explain human behavior only, like why somebody behaves the way they're behaving, why one is different from another person, and so on. And more stable characteristics, not the situational factors. Social psychology, for example, focuses more on the situational factors, social situations, how people behave. Obviously, that is also influenced by personality, but there can be interaction between situation and the person also. So we have also discussed that the debate of nature versus nurture. To what extent our behavior or personality is determined by the nature factor like genetics, and to what extent it is determined by the environmental factors. So both has their own contributions. So this is a long debate, and I have explained that debate very clearly in the trait theories of personality. I have discussed whether traits are like more genetically influenced or they're also product of environment and so on. So the debate is there, but it is mostly the interaction between the kind of the genetic tendencies you have and the situational factors and so on. So like this, and then the last module we have discussed the applications of personality. Like whatever we have understood, the different theories, trait theories, psychoanalysis, cognitive theories, social cognitive theories, and so on. Then what is the takeaway message? What should we do with this knowledge? So how this whole all these concepts of personality can be utilized in the different domains of our life, like like in the workplaces, in the relationships, in the education, all this, so the last module is specifically dedicated towards applications of all this understanding, how personality is applied in the different psychological context or human life context, domains of life context. So just to, obviously it I cannot capture everything in a 12 module course. Just to give you a gist of how personality is applied, I have tried to explain the different domains and so on. So that will give you some idea how all this knowledge can be directly applied in the organizations, relationships, and so on. Some applied settings and so on. So those who are like in the field of counseling, coaching businesses and so on, and obviously those who are in the field of psychology and allied disciplines, they will have the direct benefit of understanding all this. People who are into coaching, into all this and so on. And human personality is at the core of it. You have to understand human beings. These theories are foundations. They can be used in the different context. So you have any questions? So we'll have 2 more live sessions, 1 live session in each month. And so if you have any doubts, please note that, and you can join live sessions and ask. You can also ask through the portal also. So that is something should utilize this kind of sessions for explanations. Because video lectures are like, these are like pre-recorded. We don't have audiences and so on. So we just explain things. We also, if there are live students, so maybe they will ask questions. But in such recorded sessions, there is no one. So we're just explaining without really, getting feedback from other side. So sometimes things may look very monotonous and so on. So this live session tries to kind of, reduce the demerits of recorded lecture. Or we'll have at least few sessions where we'll interact and discuss it. So I'll wait for 1 more minute. If you have any question, you can ask. Otherwise, I'll leave. In the YouTube page, you can just type your question. You don't have to like speak. Like you can directly type also. Or in the team also, you can in the chat section you can write your questions. And assuming you have any questions, you still have more live sessions. I hope you'll join and we'll have more productive discussion in the coming future. So with this, I think I'll stop here. Thank you. Hoping to see you again.